Hi, I'm Fred Eichler, and if you're going archery elk hunting this year, I'm going to give you a couple tips. I've been fortunate enough to harvest elk in 6 different states, and I've also harvested elk on both public and private land, and I find that I'm having to constantly switch up some of my strategies. So, one of the things that I started to employ is an elk decoy. An elk decoy is awesome for elk. Not in every situation, it's just like maybe rattling for elk or calling elk. Sometimes it works amazing, sometimes it doesn't work. So a decoy can add another visual. Maybe you're calling, maybe you're out there trying to sound like an elk, but if they don't see an elk in a situation where they think they should, they start to get suspicious. So I've used different elk decoys to help me out. This is the Montana elk decoy that you can get at Bass Pro Shops or Cabela's, and it comes with some stands that you can push right into the ground. But in the Rocky Mountains, sometimes there's not always a place that you can just push some little metal rods into the dirt. So the other option is it comes with alligator clips that you can quickly deploy and put around a tree limb to set up fast. So I'll show you how to do that here in just a minute. So one of the things I love about the Montana decoy, you can get this at Bass Pro Shops or Cabela's, but it folds up into almost nothing. You've got poles that you can use to put in the ground, or a lot of times I just use these alligator clips that it also comes with. You can pop it out and you could just grab a limb anywhere quickly. Like we'll just use this one. And if you have to wrap it a few times, get it higher, you can do that. I'm gonna put it there. I'm gonna do this. Set it up there. I could even break that stick if I wanted to make it look even better. But you can take these and wrap them quick as many times as you need. And boom. I've just deployed my elk decoy. I'm ready to call more. I'm ready to set up and let that do its job. I use elk decoys in a variety of situations. Not only when I'm calling, but especially when I'm calling in areas where it's a little more open. Because if an elk's coming in, it knows it should see an elk. If it's hearing calling, it knows there should be an elk somewhere around. And a decoy will a lot of times help prevent an elk from circling and getting downwind of you. Now bear in mind, whenever you're using any elk strategy and you're in the field, whether you're on public or private land, you always have to think safety. Because this is actually a photo of a real elk, it looks real in the woods. So make sure you're in a safe position and make sure you know who's hunting and make sure you have good visibility so you can see if anybody's coming in on you that might create a dangerous situation. Now, some of the other things that I think are super important when it comes to elk hunting is always carrying a wind detector. When I'm archery elk hunting or rifle elk hunting, I have to know where that wind's going because it doesn't matter how good of a caller, how good of a hunter, how good your camo is, how good your weapon is. If that elk smells you, they're out of there, especially on public land. Elk are educated pretty early on public land and they learn to avoid and get out of there when they start smelling too much human scent. So one of my other tips when it comes to elk hunting is something that I don't use all the time, but when I've used it, it's made a huge difference in the past for me. I'll give you an example. I had one bull, we had called him in twice, we had had a client miss it, and this bull would answer. When we went out to the same area, the bull would bugle back at us. When we would cow call, he would bugle back at us, but he wouldn't come in. So I set up not only a decoy, but I also brought some rattling antlers. That's right, regular rattling antlers. I was using some little fresher ones than this, but you can get away with anything. Just like rattling deer in, if it sounds heavy, so you can't use mule deer sheds unfortunately, but if it sounds heavy, like elk antlers, you can just twist them together a little bit, or you can get more aggressive, and you would be surprised how many times on public land or on private land, elk that have heard different calling, elk that have learned the whole routine, when they hear rattling elk antlers, they can't stand it. They've got to come in and take a look. So if you're out hunting, maybe you find a couple sheds or you have some at home, take some elk sheds with you hunting. It may be a little extra weight on your pack, but sometimes it'll make the difference between taking the elk or not taking an elk. So in summary, the 3 things that I use every single year: 1, a wind detector that I can pull out super quick, check the wind. 2, an elk decoy that I can deploy quickly. If all of a sudden I get a response and an elk starts coming in, I'm gonna set up an elk decoy to help put the elk in a position where I can get a shot. And 3, is a lot of times it's worth carrying some elk antlers out there so you can rattle. It works for whitetails, and I promise you it works for elk as well. Good luck this fall. I hope you get your elk.